The mutants should be making their debut in the MCU relatively soon in the short coming years. Of course, an iconic mutant that basically everyone wants to see is Max Eisenhardt, aka Magneto. But of course, with the MCU's decisions to change characters, a lot of times drastically from the main source, I'm not saying changing a character a bit from their main adaptation is bad, just saying that it could also happen to him. I've seen people say that the writers should change his origin. For those who don't know, Magneto's origin is very tragic and unfortunately very real. He was a Jewish Holocaust survivor. Because of his religion and family ties to the religion of Judaism, he was marked with the identification number that Jews had to get tattooed on them and was planned to be killed, like millions of other Jews. He was able to escape, but at the cost of his family, either them being killed or being abandoned when they were horrified at the activation of his mutant ability. He had to don a new identity and abandon the life he had, while still being haunted and burdened by the memories of this horrific time in recent history. One of the most horrific events in all of history. Marvel had many comics about World War II, since a lot of them were published during the war, like that time when Captain America punched Hitler in the face and that Joe Simon had to undergo protection from it. I think Magneto's origin should still be about him being a survivor of the Holocaust. The reason for his misanthropy, after all. I think his religion should tie into his character as well. They were essential, critical parts for his character for decades and decades, yet people find every excuse under the sun to change it. Magneto was too old. The Holocaust happened decades ago. There are other tragic events in history to choose from. None of these excuses hold up. They don't make sense. Let's start with the Magneto's too old excuse. Age has never been a problem for Magneto ever. There's been times where he was even over 100 years old, yet it never was an issue for him. Even at his old age, he is still fit and strong. Not just that, he had the physicality of a peak human, essentially as strong as a human can be, without technically being superhuman, being able to take on superpowered beings single-handedly without his powers. He's been rejuvenated before, and there are many things in the MCU that can make him rejuvenated, but he doesn't have to be. He's just always been like that. Age has never been an issue for him. And I've seen people say that the writers can say that the mutants just age slower when they don't have to say that. He can just naturally be like that. But since we want to use that excuse, let me ask this. What about Namor, who was born around the time when the Spanish conquistadors came, making him almost 500 years old, yet still superhuman and in his prime? Not to mention, he literally can breathe underwater and has wings on his ankles too. But an old Holocaust survivor, that's where we draw the line. That's too unrealistic. What about an alien that looks exactly human and can control lightning? Or another alien who wiped out half the universe with a couple of stones? But no, a 90-year-old man, that's too unrealistic. That is where we draw the line. Now let's talk about the Holocaust happened decades ago excuse. The Holocaust started and ended not even a century ago. There are still Holocaust survivors who are alive and well today. They are still valid. It doesn't matter if it happened decades ago, it still happened. Max had to abandon his life because of it. He still suffered horrific trauma from it. Namor wanted to wipe out the surface world. He aged much slower than his mother, who was an old woman, and she died when he was a small child. She yearned for the surface world again as she had missed it so much. So she wanted to be buried back on the land when she died. But the Spanish conquistadors had already invaded. When he and the other Talocan people killed them, a Spanish man of faith cursed him before he was killed by Namor, calling him El Niño Sin Amor, the child without love. Gul Khan took this as a name his enemies would call him, Namor, since he has no love for the surface world. He still held this feeling centuries later. He was going to act on it after his people were threatened by the vibranium detection machines. Centuries, he still had no love for the surface world and wanted to wipe it all out. This is a great motivation for a great villain. A lot of people like this motivation, as do I. So why does Namor still get to have this motivation after centuries, but Magneto is not allowed this? Why does it matter if it happened decades ago? It is still completely valid. Namor is still completely valid in his hatred of the world even after centuries. So why is Magneto not allowed to have the origin he's had for decades? Because it happened decades ago? You could say the exact same for Namor. You could say that for Ego, who was billions of years old. It doesn't matter at all if it happened decades ago. His character still has the right to be a survivor of this horrific event, and it has the right to be told. It should not at all change. Now let's talk about there's other tragic events in history to choose from excuse. I know that there are other events, unfortunately, but he is a survivor from this one. Why should his character have to change events? Why can't it still be the Holocaust? I genuinely haven't seen one good reason why he needs to have his origin changed. I haven't seen the animated series, but I've been told that his origin changed from a Holocaust survivor to being a child survivor from another war. Now, I'm sure they did it well, but this isn't the animated series. You know why Magneto was subjected to the Holocaust in the first place? Because he is Jewish, that's why. He had family members who were Jewish. Because of his religion, his existence was deemed less than nothing. His character shouldn't have to change which tragic events in history he came from. These are not trading cards. In my opinion, these are not things you can just switch and swap when you're writing a character. Design choices, sure. Parts about their origin, maybe. But tragic, real-life events that have actually happened in history, in my eyes, they are not things you can just swap out, because to me, it honestly seems disrespectful. People have told me the Holocaust was just a spawn of his misanthropy, his hatred for humanity. They could replace it with something else. It wasn't just that. Here's the thing. Namor wanted to destroy the surface world because of his experience with the Spanish conquistadors. He had a motivation to hurt people because of this tragic event. Magneto didn't. He hated humans because of the Holocaust. Yes, it showed him the cruelty of the humans, but depending really on which version you're going with, he just always wanted the mutants to be safe. Humanity's hatred for the mutants and his hatred for humans, combined with the fact that he's also a mutant, makes him want to keep his people safe, away from the humans, not wipe it all out. I've seen people make the excuse of an actor themselves. I've seen people want Denzel Washington to play Magneto. Now, Denzel Washington is an amazing, amazing actor. He's one of my favorite actors ever, but he's not Jewish. Stephen Lang, in my eyes, would be a perfect Magneto. Looks like an old man, but still pretty fit. And at least he's half Jewish, since his father's Jewish. I don't care if you want to change Max's race in the movies, whether you want to make him black, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, Native American, Hawaiian, etc., at least have the actor be either Jewish or of Jewish descent. Because even if you want him to have a different origin to being a Holocaust survivor, he needs to be Jewish. Not just because it's integral to his character, but because Jewish people haven't really been getting much representation even in the MCU. Now, I'm not pointing fingers, I am not pointing fingers, but the MCU hasn't been treating their Jewish characters all too well. I'm not saying that the MCU is anti-Semitic, I'm not saying that at all, but if they did remove Magneto's origins from his character, honestly, it will be set in stone at that point that Jewish characters are not too important in the universe. Let's start with Wanda and Pietro Maximoff, the supposed children of Magneto. In the comics, they are both Romani and Jewish. In the MCU, they're not Romani, and they are literally from a fictional country with no Jewish heritage. Just straight up removed it for some reason. The character Moon Knight is Jewish. In the comic, it enriched his stories quite a bit too, but in the show, amazing, beautiful, great show by the way, it barely was even mentioned. Like him just wearing the Star of David necklace and Mark wearing a kippah, with more scenes of course, but in the comics, Judaism has motivated him and created personal conflicts about his methods. Now the show was only like 6 episodes, so there might be another season to explore much more upon this, hopefully. Here's the thing, I'm not even Jewish, but I don't have to be to understand that there should have been more Jewish representation in the MCU out of all places. And for his origin story, I'm not asking for a flashback scene of a bunch of Nazis marching around and trucks full of dead bodies. I'm not asking for that. Just a 3-minute scene of him looking out the window, explaining his origin, his experience in the Holocaust, his reason for his hatred of humanity. That's all I'm asking. And even for whatever reason they decide to change his origin, I am begging the MCU to keep his belief in, because I got no clue why they removed that from Wanda and Pietro. The MCU even has a Jewish director, Taika Waititi, who directed twice. Same one who directed Jojo Rabbit, making a war drama out of the Holocaust. So they 100% should be having a character who's part of a real tragic event in history because of his religion and the motivator for his character. There should honestly be no changes to his character. His age was never an issue. His origin is completely valid. His religion is completely valid and should be represented in this universe. Magneto is not just the misanthropic mutant man with metal manipulation. He is Max Eisenhart, a Jewish Holocaust survivor who just wants what is best for his people, even if he has to go to great lengths to protect them. Who's much more than a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He deserves to have his character told in any story like how it was from the comics. Like shit, honestly, I barely even know much about Magneto, but I'll write his character myself if I have to even. If it'll get them to write his character like it should be, while of course leaving room for change, like basically every MCU character that's been shown. I honestly do not understand why so many fans are so insistent on changing everything about him. Like, if you want to change so much about him, just make a new character at this point. There, honestly, you can't really convince me of anything to change about him for any reason, honestly. Man, shit. Tell me what you guys think about this in the comments. My birthday's coming soon, so like, subscribe, share if you feel like it. Thanks for watching. The links to my socials are in the description. Be kind to yourselves and each other. Thanks for watching.